Wait, these are both on the same computer, yeah?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yep.
Alright.
Hi out there, if you can hear us.
We're not live.
Oh, it says Serious Play went live on my app.
Now we are, yeah. So,
We got nothing here, though. I believe this is the video, right? Is there no
yeah,
video?
there's no
with us,
video,
everyone.
but
We
Quake,
don't have our gurus here.
what happens when you click up on play on Quake? Because it might be pulling from that.
Well, it should pull
The
Yeah,
whole
it might
screen.
be.
Steam.
Sure.
Oh wait,
try
what if we click, because he already has Quake up and running, look down
Yeah.
at the bottom, so if you just click into...
Oh. Look at that. Very nicely done.
No,
no.
I don't think it's up. Let me go back to OBS.
Colors are not correct.
Oh, where'd the cursor go?
And we're not running at 3800 by whatever.
Right. But it is streaming on Twitch or no? It'll be delayed.
I'm in an ad right now on Twitch,
Yeah.
so I can't...
I'll wait until after the ad. I don't think it's up. I think we have to go back into OBS and change the display capture.
Yeah, it's not up.
Alright.
Okay. Bear with us, everyone.
So I think it's this. Filters. Do we know which?
What that number is for that display?
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm going to assume it's display 0, since that's the...
And they're broken.
Nope. The screens are all going dark.
Uh-oh. And one by one.
Oh,
No.
no.
One by one.
There we go. All right, hold on. But this is...
I think it is 0. I think it, for whatever reason, it wasn't pulling the content, but
I mean,
Oh, there you go.
it was... The eye was muted, so that could be it also. Oh, yeah, there we go. So
Okay.
now we're
Yeah,
catching
it's
trails.
popped up, so...
that's an encouraging sign always for the PC.
Ooh, nice trails.
Aw, pretty.
All right, we've made it think too hard.
Yeah.
You really have to lean on someone about getting better equipment.
Are
Well, you and I
you-
can talk later.
Getting audio?
Oh, go ahead and say something.
No, it might have just catched up to you asking.
It'll be delayed by.
Yeah, there's audio.
Okay, good. So now it's just a question of getting the screen to stop catching trails. Maybe I should stop covering the button too. Wait, are there 2 copies of OBS? Look at that.
Oh, that would make it. That would make
yeah.
it very
Yeah,
confused.
that would explain it. Yep.
Yeah, let's close one of those.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
And now, if we. All right. All right.
Well, it's there, but it's very tiny.
Okay, I know how to fix that. That's when I find the cursor. That's the problem with multiple screens. I wonder why it's not coming up here.
I think we're definitely going to be missing Nathan for a while here, not just for the technical stuff. What I like about Nathan is he always has so much of the detailed information about when the games came out and what was the context of that time. It's really great. Because I was thinking about that with Quake. Like, what do you think of when you think of Quake, Stuart?
I think how it was not a game I wanted to play it
Right.
back in the day. But I do remember the day. So wait a minute, that would have been, what, mid-90s?
Mm-hmm.
Right, not early 90s.
96, 97?
96, 97, right.
Yeah. And it was after Doom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the first game I had after Doom.
No, we got that. That's not it. So.
Had to be 96.
Does that I mean, obviously first-person shooters exist. But, and I know that there's been a reboot of Doom recently and all that stuff, I haven't seen it. But does this game, in its kind of essence, exist still today in some other form? You know, like it's very smooth, it's very simple, it's very linear, it's very action, you know what I mean? Like it's pared down compared to so much of what we see today in gameplay.
It would also help if I could get that up without having to close it out.
I don't think so in the AAA scene. You know, I think all the shooters have kind of morphed over to the Call of Duty crazy
Right.
level of complexity. I think you're. I mean, these would look like. I always
Okay,
loved
so
Doom.
we
'cause
had
it
that. So now you're
felt like a
saying what I'm saying. Now
1970s
I need
horror
the red
movie,
box
you
to
know?
come back.
Yeah, there's something very simple
Yeah.
about it. Like
Yeah.
your resources
Right, yeah.
are very few, and even in terms of abilities, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna do. No, give me the little arrow. Yeah, everyone's hearing me talk to myself, aren't they?
That's fine. Welcome to the Talking to Yourself Twitch stream.
The only viewers are me, so.
It's the only way I can work tech. Okay.
I tell you though, this is going to be the one that gets a lot
Keep it
more
safe
viewers.
for work. That's all I can say. When I start muttering, it's never safe for work.
That depends on how successful I am at the moment. Bring it
Yeah.
back.
Years ago, I had a bunch of graduate students take over my living room to stream horror games. And the games they wanted to stream were, in fact, sort of limited resource, stripped down. I'm trying to think of what games we actually played. And they were interested in exactly how that reverberated against horror cinema, but more contemporary than sort of 70s.
There's an annoying box too.
It is. I wish it would just give me. You know how you get the little corner area, but it's only letting me do one dimension at a time, which is really annoying.
Oh, so if you do the corner, it's not shrinking the whole.
No, I'm not getting the.
The like proportional shrink.
I mean, this is more your territory than mine, Stuart. But is it the case that horror is? Do we understand it? People who study film and such, as having a kind of more, I want to say, pure, more focused kind of emotional content than a lot of other genres. You know, really driven by a sense of apprehension, anticipation.
Looks pretty normal now.
Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, yeah, I think that's foundational. I don't think that's how people tend to talk about that genre.
That's
No.
Yeah. Well, you know academics.
I wonder if
well, I
you
know.
just
Yeah,
in
we
the
tend to
game,
underplay embodiment. We tend to underplay
maybe.
affect. You know,
So-
that's for sure.
If you go down to
Yeah.
options and mess around with
But you're getting
I'm
this
thinking
black
more
screen
and more
around
about the
here.
other
Yeah.
So it's
emotional
only
content
doing
Uh-huh.
that,
Oh.
but
the digitally mediated stuff we do.
screen
Uh-huh.
size maybe?
Yeah.
possibly.
I've been reading this Paul Ricoeur that I'd never really read before.
Hmm.
It just has me kind of excited about some of that stuff.
Did that change anything?
It made it a bit bigger, like minimally bigger.
What record are
It's
you
at the max right now.
Between one, no, not
I mean, I'm
one
assuming if I
self
do this,
and
it's going to
another.
disappear, right?
So it's kind of his full
Ethics.
statement. I think the translation came out in 1992.
Hmm.
And it's an attempt to kind
It got
of
smaller.
All right.
compromise
So,
between Habermas and you know there's a place for the
I don't know if
logical,
the video
which
options
Habermas
at
would
the
be very
bottom.
important, and phenomenological
Didn't do anything.
and kind of communitarian
Well, that might work.
neo-Aristotelian human to human experience
Mhm.
and present together is at the heart of human ethics and society. So he has a way of sort of sorting those things together.
Let's see what that does.
Oh, look at that.
I mean, it's watchable.
what
like
if
that.
we...
I wonder if you can change it to
It
the.
actually kind of relates to the
Yeah, if we just do that.
Catherine Hale's stuff.
What if we tried a different full size?
Sure.
Presence versus
Just in case, because that
pattern.
would look way better.
That's-
So what is
You know,
this?
this
This
piece
screen
right
would
now-
be...
No,
The screen is 3,000 something.
Oh, well, yeah, no.
So now
Right.
we have
So
to
in there, the idea
have,
that
let's
throughout human
try-
history, we've always been able to constitute that
Oh,
identity
right, it's not
Yeah.
taking
through the
around.
replicating of pattern, but also through
Yeah.
presence and those things that are kind of dialectically related to each other.
Hmm.
So Record is doing something
That looks much better.
similar
It
uh,
does.
in thinking about our constitution of selfhood in relationship to others.
I mean, it's not.
Cool.
It's bigger than it was before. But
Yeah, but it's still small
It's-
comparatively.
even
Relevant. And
it seemed better in the
timely,
window
given
mode, correct?
Yeah, correct.
the horrors of social media.
That's right. That's right.
This is the one I used before, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I am glad. I may be sad, but I'm glad that there's a
Maybe if I do the red
beginning of a
box
public
now.
conversation about the ethical
Oh, yeah,
commitments
just have the box,
of the digital
Mhm.
architects of our lives.
Yeah.
Because
That is
that's
changing it, yeah.
Something I was kind of trying to, in my own way, draw our attention to with the London Lab stuff. Like, if these people are saying all the agency we need is within the system
How does
they've
that look?
created.
I don't want to cut the bottom off.
You know, there's a problem, isn't there?
You see what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
isn't
stretching.
that a-
So,
I mean, the sides are still showing. If you were to minimize.
They call it God mode for
well,
a
oh,
reason.
Yeah,
yeah.
right,
Well,
right.
I can minimize
Well, I
Steam,
think I had it.
but
I
then
turned to
we're
the
still
Latin,
going to just get the
homo
desktop in the
crayons versus
background.
homo
Yeah.
fabricans,
So I don't
right?
know
Like,
if that's
him and the
gonna be better.
creator versus man, the people who just get to make stuff.
Yeah. Right.
No, I don't want to close
I
you.
think Julian, in his own way, DeBell, really anticipated all of
What if
this
you
stuff.
minimize that and just click?
Well, certainly those who brought a jaundiced eye to it
Mhm.
in the early days are being proved right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you'll be
not,
able to
but
see
not
the
a
stuff
kind
in
of
the background,
reflex.
but it's
Yeah,
not-
not
You know,
the-
dismissal.
That's
This
less
is new.
distracting to me.
I
than
hate
Right,
new.
yeah. It wasn't that, but yet
Just
it was
gonna try
still
to center
like,
this a
oh,
little
I
bit.
expect to find the
Okay.
same human stuff that we usually find. Let's be on the lookout for that. You know?
Yes.
All right, this is the best I can figure out.
Okay.
So it is showing, but they are also seeing the background of the desktop.
Okay.
That's okay.
Like full screen's breaking it.
There's something kind of old school about that, and I like it.
Sure. It's a
All right.
PC game.
That's right.
So welcome to Twitch stream without Chris here to run everything for us.
Or Nathan.
Or Nathan, right. Our two tech guys are gone. Alright, I'm Crystalie, and today we are playing Quake, I guess. Does anybody know who picked this game?
I think it was Chris.
Yes.
Oh, so now we're going to play Chris's game.
He will be here late, he said. But yeah,
All right.
we're playing it. And we'll have to see if we can. We'll see if we can guess
Why?
why he picked it. We'll see how close
All
we
right.
get by the time he gets here. I'm Thomas Malaby. I'm a professor here in anthropology.
Stuart Moulton, professor here in English.
Scott Brenner, PhD student in English.
Josh Rivers, a PhD student in anthropology.
Who here has
Alright.
played Quake before? Scott has.
This is one of the. So it's funny, you know. I've finished Quake when I was much younger,
Nice.
when it originally came out. I was gonna say one thing that I think is interesting, like the Doom games. Whenever I read about like a colossal cave, and they always talk about when people found it on the PDP-10 unit, it would completely stop everyone from working because they were so excited to play Colossal Cave. Doom and Quake were like that to my undergraduate career. I remember when Doom came to when I was an undergraduate. Nobody did any work at all.
Yeah.
So I played through. This was the last shooter I think I've played in a long time, but this was
Is there an easy mode?
loved this game.
You imagine it's one that's not over the pool of lava.
Yeah, I've never played this before.
And we were talking, you know, as we were kind of setting up here about the idea that there's a kind of pared down quality to these games. They have a real simplicity to them, and I just wondered if that's missing right now in first-person shooters. There are probably examples we're not thinking of, but
Well, I don't know. A couple of years ago, I made my graduate seminar play through BioShock Infinite, and it was, I mean, I think the diagnosis was sort of stage 4 game design. You know, I mean, this game design had clearly become something that was going to kill the organism.
and metastasize,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm trying not to go too far with that metaphor, but
Where's the slipgate?
What about the square?
Which square? Oh, this?
Maybe.
Oh, maybe. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I suppose we could think about things like Binding of Isaac, or maybe less that than something like Undertale, as in their own way kind of reaching back toward a fluid simplicity. 'Cause that's the thing I always notice about these games when I haven't seen them for so long. It's just that the scrolling through the environment is just so quick and so smooth, and
Oh, how did you shoot?
But
Oh,
There you go.
Okay.
it's funny to think that this was the top of the line. I mean, I remember folks getting this game, and maybe half of my friends could actually run
this
this
is
on their
gonna be
rigs
so
at the time,
bad.
you know?
Right, yeah. You had to have a machine that could really handle it.
Yeah.
What's the fire button?
Control.
It's space jump.
Yes, because that's what I was trying first.
You probably dodged a few that way.
Alright, turn around. They're going to shoot me right away.
But this substituted kind of Doom's demonic, hellish kind of landscapes for a much more Lovecraftian take on it. It's kind of an industrial. You know, the original game too came with a soundtrack by Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails,
Oh, really?
which is it's not playing for some reason.
We could
There you go.
Oh, terrible.
There
I
you
shot
go.
a puppy.
I don't see. So did this game not have an interface at the bottom when you played it originally?
It should.
Oh, really?
Are we seeing less of the field now than we're supposed to? It's hard to know.
I don't know.
Your gun's all there.
Yeah.
That's true.
So.
I really don't like controlling the fire button. Someone else really needs to play.
I nominate Scott.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scott's done this, and he's wearing such a
Yeah,
shape.
you played
He
before.
made the mistake of confessing that he'd finished the game.
Meanwhile, I keep jumping when people shoot me.
Alright, this is
Jeez, it's been a while.
Yeah, but if you go back and run. Oh, so close.
There's got to be some secret here. Okay.
So when did this game come out?
We think 96.
96? Holy. Although that explains why I didn't play it. That was before my first computer.
Oh,
Ah.
nice.
It's the days when I had enough time to play games like these.
And see why PETA doesn't approve.
The fact that they're mutated, that
Yeah.
Yeah, but doesn't that just mean that someone was experimenting on them, so it's still bad?
right. Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Pretty much.
All right. Well, this is clearly coming back to you, Scott. I have to say.
I was always so disappointed in all these games because the id Software teases you with the idea of a story, but there's really nothing here that binds any of. There's no narrative reason to do any of the things that you're doing.
Right, and you know, you just put your finger on something I've never been able to articulate. It's like Doom. This is true for Doom as well. It's a very evocative set of textures and lighting and spaces. Right, it does suggest a whole history or something rich narratively behind it. Right, but you never get it.
In the case of first-person shooters, do you think most of the players look for that?
I don't think I represented the majority of most first-person shooters when I was playing these games. So, the answer to your question, I don't think so.
Because that would be my guess.
What have I done?
Gotta shoot the
There you go.
I seem to remember my younger brother back in the 90s, maybe it was the late 80s, playing a first-person shooter that had like no textures at all. It was just pure maze running and shooting.
Well, I certainly remember way back in the day, we're talking about late half of the 80s in college, where we were thrilled to have anything that looked 3D, no matter however plain it might be,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of those there was no smooth scrolling, you know, you moved block by block, you were jumping through that maze, you know, step by step.
Yeah.
So did that just open up another level? Is that what you were doing with the sequence of buttons?
It seems to be turning the lights on in front of me. Beyond that, I'm not sure, because I mean, it keeps telling me that I have one more to go. I don't know what it's doing. The Doom had this kind of strange storyline that they didn't really explore. The idea that there was a Mars mission base that was being invaded by demons, and
Right. They opened up some portal or something.
So I would play the game thinking I was going to discover more, but Quake, they just completely didn't bother.
Oh, so I never played Quake. It had even less story than Doom. Wow.
Well, there certainly aren't cutscenes, are there? Yes, there are.
I'm more than happy to share the wheel if somebody wants to jump in.
Oh.
I'm enjoying this. There's a boss, right?
Yeah.
So is this a game where you can swap between the weapons you collect once you have more than one?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Chris?
Hey, here he is. We managed to get this up and running. Thank
Yeah,
you for
the
leaving
only
it
thing we
set
don't
up.
know is why we're playing this game. Why are we playing this game? We're blaming you.
Oh, that's right. There's little grenades there.
You want to introduce yourself real quick? That'll buy you a little bit of time.
My name. My name's Chris. I'm a PhD student here at UWM in the English department. Game studies. So I'm not sure I picked this one.
Okay, no one picked this
So
one.
maybe it was Nathan.
So it had to be Nathan then.
But if I had, it would be because it's kind of a landmark as far as what computer games could do. Is this 95, 90?
You mean graphically and kind
Graphically.
of engine, physics engine, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think Star Wars Dark Forces had come out earlier in the year, but what also makes a lot of these id Software titles interesting is how they were released as shareware.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, even the credits for Quake, you have these offers. You know, if you want to buy the rest of the episodes, you can call 1-800 number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting way. It's just a different method of distribution.
Yeah, which quickly went nowhere, I guess.
Well,
Except in the indie world.
Yeah, and I suppose we haven't talked much about distribution and the relationship between distribution and the different games we've gotten over the past 30 years, I should say.
And I feel like that's Justin's bread and butter, isn't it?
Should be.
Distribution models?
he's mainly interested in multiplayer, but
Okay. But this, there's got to be, I'm sure, a connection to be made between how these games were released and this episodic, even though there's no narrative.
Nice jump. Mm-hmm.
There's the manual, I believe, has some bit about waking up on a strange land, you know,
Right.
which is kind of the id Software tradition.
it's that for some reason just makes me flash on Edgar Rice Burroughs and John Carter of Mars. So I'm being chased by Apaches. I'm in this cave. Wait, I'm on Mars. What? he'd invented the first video game narrative way too early.
And we're just looking at the titles that were released at that time, like your Mega Mans and your Raymans, a lot of platformers, Chrono Trigger, so you had your JRPGs, and like I said, Dark Forces was the only thing out there at the time that was even remotely immersing someone in. I don't want to use immersion, but putting you in a three-dimensional space. John Romero, when he was announcing this game, was releasing these, the stills from the game and these three-dimensional spaces, and trying to imagine what it must have been like at that time.
Yeah.
Like, oh my.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely remember that. That they were all about that feeling of moving through a space that was, as I mentioned before, that the fluidity with which you move still strikes me today, coming from all of these much more limited, jumpy, from block to block or step to step. Just the speed with which the environment is rendered as you move through it creates a much deeper connection with that environment.
Now, are you able to manipulate the point of view with the mouse in this game?
No.
Reading an interview with John Carmack, and he mentioned that one of the points where he knew that they were, I guess it was Romero that was not a big fan of this game because it didn't have the artistic direction he was after. But Carmack was fascinated with it at this moment where he could start manipulating the point of view and start looking up and down, and when he started being able to look down at the feet of your opponent, that was a significant moment. It's kind of odd, like.
Well, I suppose there's this step-by-step untethering of the camera to jumping through spaces, to shifting from a particular line of sight to up and down. That I could totally remember that as part of the stuff that you paid attention to with every game that came out. What was it offering that you didn't have before?
I seem to have reached an impasse.
It looks like in that vast.
Oh, there you go. You found a secret area.
Oh. It definitely takes suggestions. I seem to have, because I know. This is just like the second level, so it shouldn't be too difficult.
There is the glowing thing on the side of the door.
It's a key thing.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I see.
it's basically letting me know I need that color key. Bit surprised that
Oh, there you go.
this is where I came from, but let's see. This is a dead end too. Maybe not.
And this is one of the first titles that had multiplayer. I mean, I think some games had the ability to kind of hardwire the network together, but was this one that really promoted that?
And how would multiplayer have worked in this game? Somebody else is playing the enemies, or
No?
Well, there's the Quake Arena,
oh, right, yeah.
and you see a lot of the Unreal games coming from this.
That's where I started. Speaking to you, the idea of how quickly they move, I actually went to a talk once where they mapped the speed of players in different games and how they'd actually move. Like the Doom guy's moving 50 miles an hour.
Right?
I know. I've seen a similar talk. Yeah.
So this is one. I thought there was.
I think Espinorset has an article on that as well, where he talks about mapping World of Warcraft. Is it Azeroth? And how the landscape is compressed for as opposed to like an EverQuest, where it takes a tremendous amount of time. A lot of those like Elder Scrolls titles, it takes,
Right.
especially back.
Back in Daggerfall
Yeah.
days, man, that was one of my favorite games. But boy, there's a slog across that landscape.
Yeah, I can't remember what the hotkey was, where you could press W and press like Q or something, and it would keep you going in that direction, and you would just do it.
Yes. Yes.
Set it and forget it.
Right.
This is not going to go well.
What's the game with the
got it.
bus driving mode, the bus driving level? It's a classic instance. You have to drive a bus for 2 days to finish the game.
Well, there is a bus driver, like desert bus, or
Yeah, that's, I think,
There's-
there you go.
Well, even in the compressed landscape of WoW, people would do hotkeys to not have to travel.
Yeah.
And then get pissed at each other because one thing people would do would slash follow another player in the party and then step
Right.
away.
Again, I
forgot about
want to be clear, if anybody else wants to take over the driving, you're more than welcome to. I'm happy to play it. It's fun going back to my 20s.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're after what we would learn by having someone play from a position of relative incompetence or ignorance about it. Or like,
Oh, yeah. Okay. The system.
Goes back to Josh's point, though, about differential sort of idioms. Because on the one hand, I'm thinking, what would it be like for an absolute noob to play this, and that would be interesting. But what do we mean by that? Because if you take a sort of contemporary 21st century, you know,
Right.
somebody who already knows how to play contemporary games but hasn't played this before, what would that be like? But that's different in a way from trying to reconstruct what it would have been like in the mid-90s to play this game.
oh, I think of that stuff a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
the embodied cultural capital that we have from the games we've played,
Yeah.
it's a huge factor that we often talk about the playing of games in isolation as if somebody's new,
Yeah.
So when this came out, could you remap the controls, or was that something they weren't doing in the 90s?
You could definitely do it to different. And I'm not entirely sure that you couldn't use a mouse with this game, to be honest.
Yeah, it might be in the option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played it for the first time this morning, and I used a controller, but it wasn't. There was obviously controls that I was not able to use.
It was actually when mice became more ubiquitous for first-person shooters that I stopped playing first-person shooters because they did become too difficult.
And didn't the whole WASD mouse configuration happen by accident? It was someone had made that configuration for like Counter-Strike or something, and it became popular. I can't remember what game that was.
I'd be curious because I love that configuration.
Yeah.
I think the first game I played with that was Final Fantasy XI, and then for all games after that, I remapped them to that configuration rather than learning the new default for whatever game.
All right, what is the origin of the WASD key? This is from Stack Exchange, a game history question. And this person says it has to do with Quake World. Wasn't popularized until competitive play in Quake and subsequently Quake World made clear its advantages over the older arrow key configuration. That was popularized the layout. The first time they were used was Castle Wolfenstein, 1981. In the same year that it was released, 1981, game Wizardry, used the AWD keys for movement in a 3D dungeon. That's the one of the ones I was thinking about. Both the programmers of Castle Wolfenstein and Wizardry were users of the earlier Plato system, where the game Moria used the AWD keys.
I didn't realize Wolfenstein was that old. I thought it came out later.
No. It's an early 80s game.
So you can see the reference to Nine Inch Nails. It's actually the Nine Inch Nails logo.
Yeah.
The weapon I currently have is a nail gun.
So you guys talked about that already, Trent Reznor, and that's
I mentioned it.
had a great quotation. He said he would have written probably 3 more albums if it hadn't been for Doom taking all his time up. I think it's interesting that I don't reload, which, strangely enough, is something that doesn't feel natural. Just maybe.
You don't reload, but can you deplete your ammo? Can you? Go,
Yeah.
You go out.
I wonder what button it is, because we're missing the...
Trying to bring up the bottom menu.
Yeah. Because it would let you know, and it has a little picture of the dude.
Right, we saw it,
Yeah.
early on
Yeah.
today.
No. You got me.
So this early on, would enemies encounter you if you just stayed in one place? Would they come after you?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Reach that level of so-called AI. Didn't yet have that much processing power.
I feel like Quake is when the game kind of shifted to the novelty of playing a first-person shooter, and was really where it was concentrating all they could on trying to make the most kind of compelling levels at the expense of anything else, any story, or is all about technology and levels.
And what's distinctive about the levels?
Just that they're much more sophisticated than they ever were in Doom, for
Uh-huh.
better or for worse.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've played through all the Dooms in this game, and I much prefer the Dooms.
So you have more angles in these levels. You have more complexity of passages.
All of those things.
Try insert. Try the insert button.
Nope.
No, okay.
Something you were hitting there was making your point of view go up and down a little bit too.
Yeah.
Crouch and uncrouch, maybe.
Huh.
Quick console commands.
Was it showing up when we were in full screen?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is Nathan on?
Let me check. I don't think so. No, it's me, Josh, and Leia.
Where's my... Oh, there it is.
I couldn't get the stream to work with the full-size screen because on Twitch it was coming up in the corner, which we've had that problem before, and I tried doing the red box, which usually fixes it, but then when it was in full screen mode, the red box would not change it.
That's the problem we were having that last Friday too.
Yeah, I know that's a problem we run into before, but that's why we're looking at it like this.
So the sludge doesn't slow you down when you're in it, or whatever that is. Lava. I guess not.
Kind of expected that it would do some type of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that, alien stuff is so associated with, like, occult imagery, like torches and pyramids and big monolithic blocks and, like, I'm not sure why those things go together. Like, but in so many games, right, you've got this kind of ritualized sort of, torches and medieval kind of thing associated with, I guess, the demonic, right, which then associates
Sure.
with the alien.
Well, yeah, demons, aliens, fallen angels.
Yeah, they're all right.
Well, no, I
That's
mean, they're angels. They're sendings. They've been sent from somewhere. They're
Yeah.
astronauts.
Okay.
you know?
Yeah. All right. Right.
Ancient astronauts. It all goes together.
And ritual kind of spaces
Yep.
and ritual accoutrements are part of this communication with a transcendent sort of other world rather than our own mundane world,
I
right?
hate to be lit.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh,
you got-
interesting.
You got clipped pretty badly there, I'm guessing.
What was that?
Shoots out of that.
It was one of those wall projectile thingies. Yeah, it's a lit reference, but for me, it's Childhood's End, the Arthur Clarke story that, the aliens show up and they have to hide because they look like the devil. Small problem. We're nice, but we have these horns.
I do like the mechanic that you have to completely dismember the zombies for them to die.
I think it also makes it easier to kind of view yourself in a more positive light when you're that much farther from your primitive ancestors, because no mere human could build the pyramids. So it must have been,
Must have been aliens.
aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
Stonehenge. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, and they faked the moon landing.
Well, there's this wonderful book by David Nye called The American Technological Sublime, and he's talking about the relationship in the early United States of these natural wonders, then ultimately to these man-made wonders, these things which seem to defy explanation of how they were produced, like Hoover Dam, and things like that, become pilgrimage sites, and for exactly the reason you described, Chris, right? It seems like such a monumental construction. It kind of speaks to something more powerful than just what people would normally accomplish or something like that. And maybe there's that quality going on here. I mean, I think of Lara Croft in this connection. I think of even the X-Files and some stuff that was going on TV at the same time as this. Like there's this looking for these threatening mythologies beyond the everyday item.
Did anybody else want to say?
No, we really
We
want
wore him out.
Have we worn you out?
Chris,
No,
you should play
no,
it because
no.
you were
Yeah,
late.
yeah, come on.
Yeah,
We're
that's
late.
right.
Yeah.
Punishment for being late. I played already.
I was busy enlisting English majors.
Did you bag any? No.
A future lawyer, maybe.
Okay.
It's all about recruitment these days and retention.
Someone asked me what Plan H is. And, oh, shoot. Oh boy, I hope I didn't just mess things up. Sorry, that was a.
So is it trying to
reflex.
sell us on, what is that, 4K, 3800 by whatever, because of the big monitor, or what?
How did you get a
3840 by
We went to
2160.
escape and then went through the
Yeah, and then
menu.
Select this notification for more inform.
Chris broke it.
See, this,
Oh,
it was doing that before, and I. Oh boy. See? I shouldn't have gotten over here.
Is there a way to get rid of that and still see what's behind it? No.
there is an X there, if you can't get to it.
Return.
Blind playthrough. You're literally blind.
Yeah.
Somehow, yeah, we got to the menu, didn't we? And you chose the window mode.
Yeah, I did that
I may
in
have
the game.
told this story before, but one of my stepdaughters used to play Mario with the video turned off.
What?
Yeah.
That's skill.
Wow.
Yeah. She could go for many minutes. That's amazing.
Wow.
Did it all by sound. Still have the sound on, but just unplug the TV.
All right.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, that was
graphics look a little.
Yeah, for some reason when it's in this full screen mode,
Oh, there's the HUD there.
screen size.
Oh yeah,
That's what it was.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's encouraging. See, we needed you after all.
No. Watch the monitor blow up.
I would have been able
Oh,
to
look
finish
at
the
that.
game if I would have had that there at the bottom.
Okay. So this is. What shoot?
Control. Alt is strafe. Oh, to play Wasp.
Where does the visual language of all this stuff come from? I mean, Star Wars or Star Trek or 2001: A Space Odyssey and all that.
The architectural idiom, maybe. I was said the visual language of, looking down a gun barrel is.
Oh, I see. Right, in that sense.
Yeah, Galloway's written a chapter about it, and he basically gets to the end of the chapter and goes, "Oh no, never mind, I'm wrong." Cinematic example. No.
That's
It's its own thing.
You mean for the gun barrel?
Yeah, subjective camera.
Gold key card. Does this have that
Yeah.
shotgun thing where you're far
Does he
away? It doesn't do it.
Does he consider stuff like what was the old hunting game on Atari with the gun,
Yeah, I think he mentions it actually.
Duck Hunt and stuff like
yeah,
that?
I think he mentions it. Most of the chapter is discussion of film, which, as I say, he gets to the end and says, "No, none of this helps."
I think the Freudian analysis is not an area I'd want to go with any of these games.
It's not an area you'd want
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would reveal
A
about.
shotgun is only a shotgun.
I don't know. I mean, it's a little tempting in certain respects. I gotta say, like there's something especially about shotguns. I mean, unfortunately, right?
Norman Mailer asked what he'd learned from Ernest Hemingway. I learned never to put a shotgun in my mouth.
These guys won't go down.
Probably not even.
Looking at it, I'd also say, I think this is the aesthetics, just the simple design of this game could only exist in the 90s, because it does look like a Sisters of Mercy or Nine Inch Nails or Ministry video.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's what I mean. That's where I was kind of thinking about it, like these sort of sinister triangular shapes and the rivets and all that. And you see some of that stuff on the Death Star in Episode 4 and Aliens, of course, and Alien.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is driven by what you could do with the texturing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just a bunch of polygons, and it's too early for procedural texturing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
It seems industrial dystopic to me. Was that a
Mhm.
thing in the 90s? Was that popular?
Oh yeah.
Well, Blade Runner, I mean, for example, was what, late 80s, right around 1987
I
maybe?
think that's early 80s.
Is
It
it?
is early 80s.
I think it might be like 81, 82.
82.
Is it that early?
It's 82.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, that certainly set the scene for a lot of the kind of
Yeah.
dystopic future kind of stuff.
Actually, this looks more to me like the Dune film, not the Kodakowski Dune, but Dune.
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 Oh, the
David
original
Lynch.
Dune,
Yeah,
right?
Dune.
Yeah.
That's David Lynch, right?
Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
My favorite.
And Toto. I mean, no one ever mentions Toto during the soundtrack.
Yeah.
My film professor still has my favorite quotation about that film. He's like, the book Dune deserves the movie Dune.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, is 1979.
79.
Yep.
That's correct.
And that's a long time ago, right?
Oh,
For that,
yeah.
that's a definite kind of
Oh,
dark technological future thing, and H.R. Geiger and all that influence in that.
I think the whole Space Marines motif, of course, is coming from the camera on Aliens then a few years later. I mean, both this and Doom are populated with these ubiquitous space military.
Right, because that is in the Alien sequel.
Yeah.
That's although it's a quasi-military mission in the first movie,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of post-Vietnam stuff that people found in it.
Who's shooting?
Yeah, Aliens was 1986,
Yeah.
so that's well out there and established by this time.
Is it painful watching someone who doesn't know what they're doing play this?
Oh, I definitely
You're doing
really
better
well.
than I did.
No, yeah, really.
I think this is kind of visually satisfying to spectate because it is so fast, and it's not super complicated.
I was surprised, like some of these games that I picked up, like Sin, I think I was one that I played at this time, and I picked it up again, and it just didn't hold for me at all. It has not aged well, but I was surprised how much I got into this. Just even this morning, it was difficult to
put down.
Yeah. That's the thing about these dungeon crawls.
Yep.
Once you start crawling.
Yeah. You move satisfyingly through the environment, right?
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, like you're saying, it's quick. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no...
Yeah.
There's an immediacy to sort of, I want to get over there. Sort of like, I think of this, like one of the funny things about being on like a lake here in Wisconsin or otherwise, right? You've got the people who've got a little sailboat, right? And they're engaged in the technical mastery of trying to bring the winds to their service to move, And then you've got people with powerboats.
Yeah.
There's like, all right, now we're on this end of the lake. Now we're on that end of the lake.
Right.
It's very kind of id-satisfying sort of consumption of the landscape.
What did make it easy to put this down were these levels. It's frustrating going through the same area again and again, trying to find your way out.
Yeah, I've just been through
There you go.
text-based game with my class, and one of the sharpest critics in the class was complaining about how tedious it is to have to repeat things in this text game. And I said back to him on the forum, "Excuse me? All these other games we're playing, but they're not. It's not text."
Yeah.
Yeah.
What game?
With those we love alive, it's a Twine game.
Yeah, Porpentine.
So I actually had complaints or I shouldn't say complaints, but feedback on one of the Twine games that my students did last semester. And there's this one where they were trying to model living with addiction. And the game was you either die or you just loop through the constant, I'm not going to take heroin today, I'm not going to take heroin today. And a lot of people were like, that gets really frustrating just looping through.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, because of course I'm going from the context of what I was teaching in class, it was like, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, right.
No one
Exactly,
wanted to
they
play
got
this.
an A. It was like the best game from the educational standpoint, but
Yeah.
with one exception. I had one person who had come in and looked at it who had an addiction problem previously, and they looked at it and they were like, yes, these kids nailed it.
Yes, right. I'm so sorry.
Of course, but you know, addiction, to experience it involves that terrible pleasure, right?
Exactly.
Which, you know, you can't port that into the student's mind. You know,
Right.
from a different perspective, there's a pointless circularity to it.
So I actually wrote a Twine game that
Did you?
had a solution to this area, and the person who played it didn't get through it, and they had to write up a response to how they thought, and they wrote up an incredible response about how not being able to get out of that area affected it. I thought that was kind of really interesting, by the fact that there was actually a solution.
Yeah, reviewing games and other, you know, ergodic texts is the devil, because I once basically did a non-publish review on somebody's hypertext without realizing that there was an interface element that I hadn't seen that completely explained what the whole project was doing. And I was so embarrassed by this, I had to actually go back and port his game to another system where someone else wouldn't make that mistake, because I felt mortified. Well,
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
we're
that's
at about
that.
3 o'clock.
What's on tap for next week?
Nothing. Any
that's a
suggestions?
great game. I love that game.
We had games
Kinda
planned
dark.
The
for 2
sequel to everything.
semesters.
We did. We had
What
games planned for a
happened?
long time.
Yes.
What's that? I'm sorry.
We had games planned out
Yeah,
for
we went
months
out-
in advance.
As the
right?
beginner's guide.
That's
Says
it.
on
But
it.
we've done the beginner's guide.
Oh.
I think we should do Reckless Disregard for Gravity, personally. I think.
All right.
Is it long enough that we could do that game that we were skipping?
Oh,
What game are we skipping?
Miami something?
Miami.
Oh, Hotline Miami. I think Nathan really wanted to do that one. He was.
Oh,
Save that for him.
okay.
All right, then let's do this one from Stuart.
Okay.
What was that? Reckless?
Well, I could give you the actual title. Sort of. The actual title is A Reckless Disregard for Gravity. It literally is this long stream of A's. You know, I sometimes think that I love this game only because of the title. Because it's got to be the longest title of any game ever.
Oh, there it was. Yeah.
It's there.
Do we want to say goodbye and stop streaming?
Yes.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody already owns it. Cool.
For the awesome.
Oh, for a VR headset.
Oh, for the
Oh.
arts.
All right. All right. Well, sorry I was late. Thanks for everyone for joining us again. Thanks to the DH Lab for hosting another edition. So,
Thanks indeed.
next week.
Mhm.